Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
All day, every day.
Good morning, my neighbors!
That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.
All right, everyone, it's Thursday. Put everything down, leave your work for later. It's another episode of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Episode 71 is here. It's available for download. The DocNJock sports program is ready to deliver another great hour of Detroit sports content. I am the Doc, John Macaroon.
You're an idiot.
Joining me is my cousin, Adam the Jock Strozinski.
You totally wish I was walking around in high heels and makeup right now with the dress on.
What's up, cuz?
What's up, baby?
Lots has happened since we last sat down here and gave our thoughts on the microphone. Lots of things have happened in the world of Detroit sports with the Tigers, the Wings, Pistons, and of course, our Lions. And I can't wait to kick this bad boy off. I can't wait to talk about what's been going on with our teams, and I look forward to this. How's everything been going, my man?
Oh, I can't complain, brother. Can't complain. How have you been? Everything's good in the world?
Everything's good. Enjoying the holiday season, getting out and about. I just am really quite interested in what's been going on with this whole Harbaugh situation. It seems like everybody and their mama wants to get the scoop. It's either Harbaugh or Miles. And I don't see why so many people in the media are trying to outscoop each other. I don't know why they're trying to be the person that has the scoop. Like, there's so much information out there nowadays. Everyone that's kind of in the know in sports, we all kind of look at the same stuff. So it's quite interesting that everyone in the media is like, Harbaugh's coming. No, he's not. Why is he coming? Why is he not coming? What's going on with Michigan? And Michigan is just laying back, being quiet, and it's just really interesting how you have a national coaching search going on over there at Michigan, and it's been all quiet. Not too much is going on, and I just think they're waiting for whatever is going to happen out there in San Francisco to happen. They're going to make the offer, and the ball will be in Harbaugh's court. And it'll be interesting if he says, no, I'm not coming, because then you're going to have to deal with some PR issues in terms of really reaching out to Les Miles, who really, in most people's eyes, is just a backup.
As a Michigan fan, I'm actually very happy with the way things are going. Keep it all quiet on the home front. Don't say too much. Actually, don't say anything. Just sit there and go about your business. And if you do extend an offer to Harbaugh, because he is interested, and if he does reject you, just act like nothing ever happened. Act like it didn't even happen. Act like Miles was your number one pick overall. And you know what? For all we know, Miles might be the number one guy. He's got a bowl game that he's preparing for. Nothing's going to really get sorted out until basically the first of the year. Once the first of the year kind of rolls around, the bowl game will be over, Harbaugh's season will be over, and then we can really get down to brass tacks and really start talking about who's going to be the new head coach of Michigan. And in my opinion, either one of those guys, I don't think you can go wrong. I think they're both exceptional picks. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. He's proven what he could do at Stanford, and he's proven what he could do in the NFL. And Les Miles, I mean, just look at the guy's track record in the SEC. On top of it, he's been known to eat grass. I mean, that's outstanding, right? The guy's crazy. He's the Mad Hatter for a reason.
Now, do you take any stock into the national pundits who are showing up on our radio stations, kind of basically saying, hey, Harbaugh's not coming. He's on the fast track to Oakland, or he's going to take another NFL job that comes open. Basically, you got the local people who are really pushing for Harbaugh and really wanting Harbaugh and really putting it out there that Harbaugh's coming to Michigan. And then you got the national media who's saying, no, he's not coming, he's staying in the NFL. Where do you weigh in on this? Do you think the national media is out of touch and are totally wrong? Or do you think along the lines of common sense that Harbaugh is just keeping his options open?
I think it's all speculation, really and truly. I don't really buy what the national pundits are saying, because if you look at who is saying that he's going to stay in the NFL, it's all the NFL guys. So it's basically NFL guys talking to other NFL guys and not really reaching out to the college aspect of it all. And then you've got people here in the local media who are reaching out to their sources that are wrapped around Michigan football, and everybody knows that the guys at Michigan football really want Harbaugh to come. So it just kind of take it for what it's worth. It's all kind of a grain of sand here. I don't buy into really any of it. And I do think Harbaugh is keeping his options open. I think he's going to see how things play out in San Francisco. Nothing's written in stone that he's getting fired from that job. It's all just assumed because he has a strained relationship with the front office, according to reports, and that now they're out of the playoffs. But you got to remember, he's done something that no other head coach has ever done in the NFL. He took a team to 3 straight championship games, and then he got a team to the Super Bowl, and he just couldn't beat his brother. He was basically a few points away from winning a Super Bowl. So for San Francisco to let him go, let a talent like that go, there's got to be a little bit more there going on with that story that's coming out, because I think they'd be crazy to let a coach like that go. And I know that he outstays his welcome just about everywhere he goes because of his type of personality, but at certain points, you got to suck it up and you got to make a good business decision. So I think Harbaugh is just keeping his options open. I think he's just kind of playing the game. And, all this speculation, all this does is good for him. It just drives his price tag up.
This is about that paper. It's all about the Benjamins.
I think the guy's making something close to $5 to $7 million right now over there in San Francisco. The guy's going to end up either leaving this job or he's going to get a pay raise to stay there, and he'll be making somewhere around $7.5, 8, 9, maybe $10 or $12 million when he leaves. So good for him.
Exclusively here on the Detroit Sports Podcast, I have a scoop. You ready to hear it?
Oh, I can't wait.
I'm friends with Jim Harbaugh's agent, and I reached out, and I sent him an email, and he said, "Who the hell's this?" And I said, "I'm John, the Doc with the Detroit Sports Podcast."
And he said, "Oh, I've heard of you."
And he's like, "Who the hell's this?" And he's like, "No, I will not comment on the situation with Jim Harbaugh." So I sent him another email, and he didn't answer. So then I personally called him and got him on the phone, and then he hung up on me. And then I realized that...
You're tenacious, if anything.
I'm tenacious. So then I had to talk to the secretary. And so she wouldn't go on the record, but I'm not a journalist, so I don't know what that means. But I have, from the conversation that I had with the agency that Jim Harbaugh works with, I basically came to the conclusion that the team, the organization, the college club that shows Jim Harbaugh the most money is the team that he's going to go to, and that's the team that he's going to tell Jim Harbaugh to go to. And I came to that conclusion because the agent wants some money. And the more money that Jim Harbaugh gets, the more money the agent gets. So I'm going to put that out there as a scoop that Jim Harbaugh is going to land to the team that pays him the most money. And whether that be Michigan, if you want him, back the Brinks truck up, pay the man his money, and he'll be at Michigan. Otherwise, if the Miami Dolphins roll up and make a decent offer, he's going to go there. And I think everyone knows that his wife will be happy if he makes a big fat paycheck and doesn't really care where he goes. As long as the check has a lot of zeros and is more than any other offer, that's where he'll be.
Feeling a little let down by all this. I was really
hoping
for some groundbreaking analysis, and I've got that.
And then just to be truly honest, that was all bullshit. I didn't reach out to nobody. I don't have time in my weekly schedule to call anybody regarding the Harbaugh situation. I honestly have to retract what I just said, but I am speculating like everyone else. So I think my opinion holds just as much weight as anyone else's. It's safe to say that the agent's going to want to get the most money. So if Michigan, real simple, you want Jim Harbaugh when the season's done, when he resigns or when he's fired, make him the highest paid coach in the United States and you'll have your man. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. That's plain and simple. All right, cuz we're going to break it down on this podcast. We're going to talk about the Lions. We're going to talk about the Tigers. We're going to hit on some things going on in the news with the Pistons and Wings. We get a chance to talk to one of our friends from the Detroit Sports Nation. Jeff Deacon will come on and talk about some of the offseason moves of the Detroit Tigers. And also, he's a big Red Wings fan. We'll get a chance to talk about the Wings with Jeff Deacon later on in the podcast. So, cuz, do you want to open with the Lions or the Tigers? Tigers made some key moves last week. It's going to greatly affect the rotation and the lineup in the 2015-2016 season. You got the Lions, who are on the verge of maybe potentially a 12-win season. Exciting times. What do you want to kick off first? I'll give you the choice.
Let's go Lions first. That was a bit of a nail biter on Sunday. They held on to beat Minnesota. We both took the points in that game. I think you can kind of see where I was thinking early before the draft, and possibly drafting Teddy Bridgewater if he was there. He makes a lot of good plays, but he's still a young quarterback, making mistakes, kind of feeling his way through the system. His rookie season. The Lions, can we just say thank God for defense? Thank God for this defense, because otherwise they'd have blew that game. If it wasn't for the defense making timely picks and coming up big and blocking field goals, we'd have lost that game. There'd been no reason to lose that game. Minnesota's not a great team, and they're not even a really good team. They're an average team at best, and for the Lions to sit there and make that game as close as it was, unbelievable. The thing I can say, the one thing I can take out of this weekend, they're not the same old Lions. That is a game that the same old Lions would have lost. They'd have sat there and they'd have mailed it in that fourth quarter, and they'd have lost. They sat there, they gutted it out, they found a way to win, and they come away with the W. Now putting the heat on Green Bay, who is taking on Tampa Bay this week, and sets up for an epic Week 17 matchup if Detroit can get a win versus Chicago this week.
Oh yeah, I'm the biggest Tampa Bay fan. We didn't think Buffalo would do what they did versus Green Bay. They held Aaron Rodgers to really a season low in terms of passing yards, and the Green Bay offense was totally ineffective. And so now, if Green Bay loses to Tampa Bay and the Lions beat Chicago, then we've already wrapped up the division and clinched a playoff berth. And that's awesome to say. Right now, as we speak, the Lions are 10-4 in first place due to tiebreakers ahead of Green Bay. If by some chance, this Lions offense can turn things around, be the force that they can be, then we have a chance to have a first-round bye and a home playoff game. And I truly believe that the odds will be in the Lions' favor to win and advance in the playoffs if they're playing a game at Ford Field than if they were on the road. And so it's going to be very important not to have a letdown versus Chicago, who by all accounts have just totally given up on the season. Chicago is in utter turmoil. You got the offensive coordinator of Chicago blasting Jay Cutler in the media. The fans have revolted. There's talk of a massive shakeup in terms of maybe blowing out everybody. General manager, head coach, maybe even biting the bullet and taking a huge hit by cutting Jay Cutler. In the end, I think Detroit is going to go and handle their business this week. I don't see them letting down against the Chicago team. And what's interesting, though, last week going into Minnesota, lots of the players had the flu. So you had Sue and Stafford kind of missing practice, maybe not 100% into it during the week because of the, their flu-like symptoms. And then the offense started off slow. And Minnesota jumped out to a 14-0 lead. And again, the Lions came back after letting up the 14 points. No more points for Minnesota. And the Lions scored the next 16 to take the game. Real fast, how tight was your butthole when Blair Walsh lining up for a 70-yard field goal? And right off his foot, it looks good. It looks like, this has a chance. And then in the end, it just faded short. So how relieved were you when that kick was short?
That was one of those ones where you wipe that sweat off your eyebrow and you're like, whew. You know what? Going into this Sunday, though, against the Bears, here's one major issue. The Lions aren't just playing the Bears. The Lions are also playing the elements. And the Lions have lost 16 consecutive games in weather that is below 40 degrees. The Lions suck as a cold weather team. So not only do they have to go on the road and play Chicago in frigid temperatures, they've got to go to Lambeau Field and play them in what is essentially an icebox. I don't know if the Lions win these next two games, and I was very confident going in to these games. Basically, the last 3 weeks I've been very confident. Now I kind of feel like that noose is kind of tightening up around my neck a little bit, and I might have to eat some of these words. I need you to kind of talk me down and bring me back, man. I gotta come back to the good side here because I feel, I don't know, I'm uneasy, I'm unsteady with all this. I mean, this stat of them losing 16 consecutive games in temperature underneath 40 degrees, it just kind of, So I don't know.
Let me ease your tension. Let me tell you what's going on.
Please help me.
The Lions last week versus Minnesota, down 14-0, looking for anything to gain momentum. Where do they turn to? The defense. Quinn and Slay got back-to-back interceptions to help the Lions get 10 points to get back into the game. Because the Lions do not allow teams to run the ball. Minnesota only ran the ball for 76 yards, which was a little bit more than the average that the Lions give up. But in the second half, in crunch time, they only gave up 12 rushing yards the entire second half on 8 attempts. And so the Lions have the ability on defense to shut teams down. Matt Forte is not going to be able to do a whole hell of a lot. Brandon Marshall the Chicago Bears wide receiver, who around here is known for challenging the Lions fans to fights on Twitter, out for the year. He's no longer there. So their weapons are declining.
But your boy Alshon Jeffries is still there?
Alshon Jeffrey is one guy that you're going to have to contain and worry about. But that's really about it. Jay Cutler is a turnover machine.
He is. He killed my fantasy team, by the way. I'm not playing for a championship this week.
Oh,
Hate you, Jay Cuts.
Yeah.
You neither. Oh, we're going for third together. Me versus you. All right.
Woohoo. Jay Cutler's a turnover machine. He is really causing the Bears organization to question why they signed him to that large of an extension. And there's a lot of talk about them having to decide, do we bite the bullet and let this guy go? And just last season, the Lions went into Chicago and won the game. So, with all of the things that the Lions have to gain in this game, I don't see them letting down. But the question is going to be this: will the Lions ever get it together on offense, especially now? Like Adrian Waddle, torn ACL, out for the year. Lucas, who has played both right and left tackle, is going to step in and fill in on the offensive line, but he's a rookie. Matthew Stafford is continuing to be pressured, and the Lions' offense has struggled. And so I got a question from Twitter. Let me fill you in on it.
Okay.
If you want to message us anytime on Twitter, at Detroit Podcast, feel free. Doc and Jock are one of the most interactive Twitter pages. We will get to your question. We will at least address it, and we may even address it here on the podcast. And at Kamikaze21 messaged us, and so he said this. He said, please rise above the lazy blame Stafford narrative this week and talk about what the problem with the offense really is. And so he really hits home at what a lot of fans are looking at. How much blame does Stafford get in this situation with the offensive woes, and how much of the blame goes to really the scheme and what is going on with the offense? So here's my opinion. Stafford has a role in what's going on in the offense. And the reason why, Eric, that he is the focal point a lot of times from the fans and the media is he's the number 1 overall pick. He's in his 6th year, and he has
makes a ton of money.
Making a ton of money, and there's an expectation that this guy should be able to rise above anything that goes on the field and be able to shine. And you're right. I think too much blame when the offense stinks does go to Matthew Stafford. Yes, he does miss some throws. Yes, his mechanics are sometimes inconsistent, but it's not all his fault. And here's what everyone I think sees, and here's my opinion of what's wrong with this offense. Right now, they have dumbed it down and made it so conservative that really defenses don't have to worry all that much. The Lions are really kind of vanilla. They're ineffective in the run game, and they typically use running backs to try to get yards off of screens. And so, because the running game is so ineffective, defenses out there don't have to overthink much about what the Lions offense is doing. Golden Tate's numbers continue to decline in the face of, Calvin Johnson's return. And the offense only put up, last week? 16-14. And the offense is really rather boring and conservative. What's really challenging is when you don't have a run game, you really become one-dimensional. Defenses in the NFL really can pick apart what you're doing. If the Lions do not become more consistent in terms of becoming more well-rounded in the offense, then this is what's going to happen. You're not getting any effectiveness from the tight ends. You're basically wishing the offensive line can remain together and consistently play well in order for the run game to get going. Reggie Bush is doing nothing, so you're relying on Joique Bell and Theo Riddick. While they're good, they're serviceable, they don't provide that elite running back talent like breakaway. Joique Bell does not have the ability to break away from defenders. But he's going to get you. He's a hard worker. He's going to get you 5-6 yards. He's a hard worker. He keeps his legs pushing.
He's that 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of running back. He'll lower his head. He'll lay the boom on you, and he'll kind of keep it moving. He'll pick up the first down, but he's not going to get you to the end zone on a 60-yard run, a 30-yard run, not even probably on a 20-yard run. He has the potential to do it now and again, but that's not his style. Have we really been overcritical of Matt Stafford this year? I think we've been more critical of the offensive coordinator, of the offensive line, of maybe some of the decision-making that Matt Stafford has made by not utilizing Golden Tate, but I don't think we've been overly critical of Matt Stafford, and I don't think a lot of this has to do with Matt Stafford. He hasn't really made questionable throws, hasn't really made questionable errors. There are a few times where you've scratched your head this season, but I think a lot of the issue is the scheme. I think a lot of it is what's going on with the coordinator, with Lombardi, and what he's trying to institute here. On top of it, you've got a beat-up offensive line, which isn't making things any easier. So I don't know if the offense is just too complex for a first-year team to kind of learn it, absorb it, and then go out there and demonstrate it on the field. So I don't know, maybe this is a work in progress and we'll see something better next year. But for right now, I think Lombardi's got to really take a step back, look at what he's trying to do. Because if this team is going to win a playoff game, or if they're going to win a division, or they're going to make some noise going forward, they've got to put some of these pieces together and they've got to figure it out. What they've got going on right now, only scoring 1 touchdown against Minnesota, that's not going to cut it. And before that, they sat there and they were basically held scoreless for what was it? I think it was like 12 straight quarters. No, it wasn't 12. I think it was maybe 10 straight quarters before they sat there and they started kind of going gangbusters there. But you can't do that. This team can't continue to win games doing this. You're going to go on the road to Chicago this week. You've got to be able to put up a few points. Jay Cutler is kind of a garbage fire. He's a disaster. What else can you say about the guy? He's a disaster. You still got to put points on the board. You're going against an okay defense, not a very good defense. You're going to be playing in cold weather, so you got to face those elements. You're going to have to be able to run the ball. You're going to have to be able to throw the ball. You're going to have to get into the end zone. If it wasn't for our defense this week, the Lions might not have scored a touchdown. If Glover Quinn didn't intercept that ball and get it down to the 3-yard line, and when he got it down there, I was like, oh, come on, man. You can't even get into the end zone? I was like, we're going to have to settle for a field goal here. That's how little confidence I had to that point with the offense scoring. They go on these droughts where they just dry up like the desert, and you can't have that. Not this late in the season, not when you're basically contending for a division, and not when you're contending for a playoff spot, and not when you're trying to contend for a Super Bowl. I know that feels a little bit bittersweet to say words like that, contending for a Super Bowl. With this offense, with this defense, this offense has to be able to come along and has to be able to help, because that defense is going to win you games. That defense is going to keep you in games, but you got to be able to put points on the board. And I don't think a lot of it falls on Matt Stafford. I think a lot of it falls on the scheme and the position that these players are put in. They're not put in good spots. And Matt Stafford has to find a way to get the ball to Golden Tate. He's got to be able to find a way to sit there and help this offense move down the field. He can't sit there and keep targeting Calvin Johnson when Calvin Johnson's got 3 guys draped around him. You got Jeremy Ross, who's got a lot of speed on the outside. Get the ball to that guy. He's phenomenal as a slot player too. Get the ball to him. Golden Tate, all you got to do is get Golden Tate the ball in a little bit of space and watch him work his magic. That's what he's good at. He's good at getting yards after the catch. Stafford is doing a decent enough job, but I don't think a lot of the blame goes on him. I think a lot of it goes on the play calling, and they have to change some of that. They've got to put this offensive line. I don't care if you got to rework this offensive line right now. Just going through the season, we're going into week 16 right now. We've got to change things up a little bit. You start moving some of these guys around. They got to better protect Stafford, and they got to help this run game. This run game is almost non-existent. You've had basically 3 games this entire season where you've actually put countable numbers up in the run game. You've got the 30th rush attack in the league. 30th. That's horrible.
What the hell is that about?
That's awful. You could take Orchard Lake St. Mary's and put their running backs behind certain people and watch them pick up more yards than what this Lions running game does. I think a lot of it has to do with scheme, and a lot of it has to do with this offensive line being beat up.
How much concern did you have when you see Warren Buffett and his whole clan, his whole family there in attendance at Ford Field, ready to support Ndamukong Suh? A lot of people looked at that and were like, why would he come out all the way there to Ford Field, watch the game, if there wasn't maybe a chance that this could have been the farewell game for Ndamukong Suh in the regular season at Ford Field? And really the question is going to be this. The Lions would be crazy to let Ndamukong Suh go because he does so much. He's rounding into an elite defensive presence on the line there, but witnessing Warren Buffett at the game and kind of the celebratory nature of that and kind of him being there clapping. You had CJ Mosley, I don't know if he was joking around on the sideline with Ndamukong Suh saying, "Don't go, baby," and that was visible. I just think that, and Ndamukong Suh continues to, after games, just kind of scoot along, doesn't talk to the media. When there is an NFL rule that says you are obligated to speak, he's kind of taken a pass this year and kind of skipped out on several media interviews after games. I just think that the numbers game are not likely to work out for the Lions, and he's going to end up going somewhere else. And so that's why I took it as, okay, Warren Buffett was there. It was kind of different. He was, rooting on Ndamukong Suh, and Ndamukong Suh likely after the season will be somewhere else.
Yeah, this is probably the last time you'll see Ndamukong Suh at Ford Field in a Honolulu blue jersey. Everything that you just described, I think this kind of signifies the end of his era here. Earlier last week, he came out and basically said that his agent has control over where he's going to go, so that means he's going to the highest bidder. I think the Lions would be crazy to sit there and pay him the kind of money that he's expecting to make. because you're going to hamstring yourself everywhere else going forward. You'll basically have 3 players making elite player money, and you're not going to be able to put pieces around these guys. So I like what Ndamukong Suh does. I think he contributes to this defense, and I think he is a great part of what is good about this defense this year. But I think going forward, you can't pay this man what he's expecting to make or what he's looking to make. He's on his way out the door. He's had a foot out the door since he came here, so he's going to go away. I know a lot of the players want him to stay. A lot of the players have come out and been vocal about him staying. It's not going to happen. This was his going away party. He's basically just kind of said adios and kind of chucked a deuce to the Motor City. The only other time you might see him at home is if the Lions are lucky enough to get a home playoff game. That'll be the only other way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that it is what it is, and it's going to be unfortunate because his loss will greatly affect the defense, and it's been great this year to watch the Lions really exert their control over a lot of teams in terms of defense. Being ranked that high on defense is something we haven't seen for so long. The Lions winning 10 games, I think it's only the 3rd time in the last 40 years they've won 10 or more games. And we have a chance now to win a playoff game, the 2nd playoff win in 57 years. And the Lions are on the verge of really having a great season. They're changing our expectations. Right now, we're talking about what teams we may match up with in the playoffs, whether it be Dallas, whether it be Philadelphia, New Orleans, what we may do in potential second-round matchups, if we have to play Arizona or Seattle. It's good to talk about these kind of things and to see where the Lions shake out. But yeah, I really feel like the Lions are in the mix if they can really solve the problems on offense, which I don't know. I don't see it happening. I don't see all of a sudden the Lions offense just clicking. I just think maybe they may have to capitalize more on turnovers in terms of getting points off of the defense. The Lions are going to have to kind of become a game managing type of team. I don't see them scoring 30 plus points in a playoff game. I think what the Lions strategy is to control the game, stay in it, be within a score or two or have the lead, and then really rely on the defense. And I think next year you might see an advancement in terms of Stafford in this offense as Ebron gets more into the system, as the players are more familiar, as they bring in more talent on this offense. They really should address some depth issues in terms of offensive line and maybe running back, and then that way you can become a more well-rounded team. But yeah, right now, as is, you're looking at trying to win playoff games 20-17, 20-14 in that vein. Because yeah, wouldn't that be a shame if our defense really plays well and our offense lets us down? Really in this season, because the expectation was you have all this talent and weapons, and it just hasn't happened yet because I think the new system, and I think that you really wasted an opportunity to advance this offense by drafting Ebron. Not that he's not going to develop. I think everyone's has beat it into me to say, okay, it's still too early. But the moves that Mayhew has made in terms of the tight end position really don't make any sense because you had Fourier, you had Pettigrew, and yet you drafted Ebron. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And Pettigrew isn't playing all that well. Fourier's been hurt, and Ebron is still learning the system. So you have basically no effectiveness from the tight end spot.
And
when a lot of teams utilize it for success.
Are exactly the same player.
Yeah.
They're basically the exact same guy. One's a little bit more athletic than the other one. And then you go out and you sign Pettigrew to, a 4-year deal. It made absolutely no sense to draft Eric Ebron.
Yeah, and it just every week you notice when, the offense struggles that, okay, you could have had another weapon to help this offense. And Ebron, we're just going to have to wait. We're going to have to delay our gratification on him, if at all, if at any point he does succeed for us. But hopefully that answers the questions out there. Yeah, we don't blame Stafford. It's the unit as a whole, and they're definitely going to have to step up their game if they're going to want to advance and really have the season that we've all expected. And we're on the cusp, cuz let's not let down now. We're 10-4. We're in the driver's seat. Let's go dominate Chicago, keep them down. Let's put our foot on their throats, completely embarrass them, and let's handle our business. And that way we can set up the matchup we've all waited to see. Can the Lions end the streak of losing in Green Bay? Haven't won there since 1991. Since I was, 12 years old, they have not won a game in Green Bay. And so this is going to be a great couple of weeks. And hopefully the Lions continue on a roll. They're winning games, so we give them credit. You could be losing these games close. And the Lions have shown they have the ability to do what it takes to win games close and to make the key plays when needed. Let's keep that going. Stay with us. After the break, we're going to play a round of Jock Jams. The Doc has some questions lined up. I'm interested to get Jock's opinions on some of the things going on nationally and around town. Stay tuned.
This is the Detroit Pistons dancing usher. My name is Shannon. And when I'm not at the Palace, I'm listening to Detroit Sports Podcast. Log in, listen in, Have some fun with us. Love this group. Love this station.
You're the future of our business, and I know when you guys have a podcast like this, our future is in good hands.
I just want to thank everyone who downloads this podcast on a weekly basis, and we greatly appreciate those who download this podcast, and we greatly appreciate those that support us. You can support us by going to our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can click on the banner links. You can contribute via PayPal. Just for a small donation of $1 a month, you greatly help contribute to the Detroit Sports Podcast, help us keep our show on the internet, and continue to provide great weekly content every single week dedicated to Detroit sports. All right, cuz, you ready to tackle some questions regarding Detroit sports and some things going on nationally?
Let's do it, buddy.
All right, here we go. The long-awaited debut, Johnny Manziel, Cleveland versus Cincinnati at home. Head coach Pettine decided, okay, now's the time. We're 7-6. Let's put in a rookie quarterback and let's see what he can do. He's shining in practice. What the hell was Coach Pettine looking at? Johnny Manziel crapped the bed. He looked awful. Johnny Manziel basically embarrassed himself in his debut. Shut out. And you had Cincinnati's defenders flashing the money signs at him all day. They were hell-bent on not allowing him to take over the game. And Johnny Manziel missed reads. He looked lost. He didn't look like he knew what he was doing. And really, what a shame that Coach Pettine made the wrong choice. Yeah, he's the quarterback of the future. We all know that. I don't think Johnny Manziel gave the Browns the best chance to win. Yes, Hoyer was struggling, but Johnny Manziel looked horrible, and you got shut out. What did you see? What was your take on the debut game of Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel?
There really wasn't a whole lot. I mean, he looked ill-prepared. He looked awful. Didn't look like he was studying his playbook. He made bad reads, bad decisions. He threw the ball up for grabs a few times. The bigger issue here is Mike Pettine basically has sabotaged the Browns now. They can't go back to Brian Hoyer. They were a team that was in playoff contention and biting for a playoff spot. And the quarterback who basically won you 7 games and got you to this point, you cannot now go back to him. You are done. Brian Hoyer's career in Cleveland is now done. He'll be a free agent at the end of this year because you've now given the reins over to Johnny Manziel and you can't take them back now. That was a bad mistime move by Mike Pettine. And yes, hindsight is 20/20, but I think going into that, you and I both would have said, no, not yet. Pump the brakes. You got some time here. Yes, Brian Hoyer was struggling, but he won you 7 games. He got you basically to the point where you guys can contend for a playoff spot, and that's saying something. You now turn it over to Johnny Manziel, who did absolutely nothing against Cincinnati, and now you can't go back. The Brown season is over. It all rests on the feet of Johnny Manziel now. I don't think that you're going to see anything productive from him. You know, he might show flashes this year, but he's not prepared. He's not ready. The thing about Johnny Manziel that made him special in college was he was quick. He was elusive. He was fast. He was ill-prepared. He shouldn't have been put in that spot. You should have let Brian Hoyer run out the rest of the season, and then you could have reevaluated where you guys wanted to go after that. So the Brown season is now over. You can put their tombstone and basically rest this at the feet of Coach Pettine and Manziel.
Exactly, and that throw where he scrambled and tried to throw into the end zone for the pick was evident of a play that he would have made in college for a touchdown. The difference between college play and NFL play is so vast that I can't believe the head coach made that decision. And it just shows that he may be a coach that cows to pressure and doesn't have the balls to stand up to the fact that Hoyer was the guy that gave him the best chance to win. And it just sucks for Hoyer, but hey, that's their problem, not ours. Luckily, we got our guy now in the 6th year, and we're talking about some different type of issues. All right, cuz, the Pistons have played a little bit better since the debut of Jody Meeks, who debuted on Friday. And you can see how his presence in the offense helps the team to play better on offense because he can actually hit shots. But then some news came out that, now that players can be traded, some players are on the trading block. Obviously, Smith, Monroe, and Jennings are the likely 3 targets. And the scenario is going to be teams may be calling for Monroe, with the Pistons being like, please take Jennings, please take Smith off our hands, please, please, please. What's been your take in this last week with the Pistons in terms of their improved play and thoughts on some moves that may be available to help the Pistons reshape this crappy roster?
I like what Jody Meeks brings to the team. He looks like a spark. With the news coming out that the Pistons are trying to either move Greg Monroe for a first-round pick or they're willing to trade Jennings and Smith. I'm okay with Jennings and Smith going. I really hate to see Greg Monroe go. It's going to have to be a nice first-round pick for me to be happy with that. At certain points, I just wonder if Stan Van Gundy goes home and just basically wraps his lips around a barrel of a gun and just contemplates ending it all. This has to be a giant disaster that he didn't see coming. I don't think he could have expected it to be as bad as it's been. And it's nice to see Jody Meeks come out there, and it's nice to see what he can do. It's good to see what he was doing over in LA kind of translate here. But still, this team is a catastrophe. And I really do believe the only way it's going to get better is if you trade away pieces like Jennings and Smith. That's the only way it's going to get better. It sucks to see Greg Monroe go if he does go, but hopefully that first round pick will turn into something useful down the line. Yeah, they've played better, but it's not saying a whole lot. This team still is a work in progress. There's a lot that they have to do to get better.
The Red Wings, struggled a little bit this last week. Continued shootout woes. So my question to you is this. Lots of people have said, you know what? Not digging the shootout anymore. It's really related to the Wings struggling. The only win they got in the shootout this year was Peter Mrazek. Howard struggles. He doesn't make a whole lot of saves in the shootouts. And the Red Wings offensive players, they make way too many moves and they get stoned quite a bit. And I've caught a couple of the shootouts. They weren't pretty. And what stinks is the Wings are playing great. They're very fast, they're very efficient, they're playing great, but a lot of fans leave games feeling like they're cheated or they're disappointed because they lose a shootout. Do you think they should go back to the tie system where if you don't score after 5 minutes of overtime, then the game's over? What's your thoughts on maybe going to 3-on-3 after the first overtime? Should this overtime system be scrapped, and what the hell's going on with the Wings in the shootout?
I'd like to see it just ended on the ice. I'd hate seeing it ended in the shootout. The shootout is great because it's one of the most exciting plays in hockey, but it's exciting because it rarely happens. It's exciting when a guy gets hauled down on a breakaway and then you get to go to center and you get to watch the shootout happen. Or it's exciting when an opposing player covers the puck in the crease and then you get a penalty shot. That's when it's exciting. The shootout is kind of annoying to me. I don't really like it. I'd prefer to watch these players create and be magical on the ice. Nothing is better than playoff hockey when it goes to an overtime and it has to be settled in sudden death. Nothing is more nail-biting, on edge. You're never more on your nerves than when you're watching one of those games. So why not have that all season long? I understand for time constraints and for basically player health. I get it. So just do away with the shootout, go to the 5 minutes, and when we're done, we're done. Or do the 5 minutes and then go to a 3-on-3 for 5 minutes, and then after that, you're done. That's it. That's all there is to it. So I say let the players create. I say let the better team win, because what you're doing now is you're making individuals win the game for you. That just seems, it just doesn't seem right to me. It just doesn't make sense. And Jimmy Howard is awful in the shootouts. The guy can't stop a beach ball. He makes miraculous saves, like stands on his head, makes saves during the game. Comes time for a shootout, I don't know if it just gets in his head. I don't know if it's his footwork. I have no idea. I tried watching it, I tried analyzing it, and I tried breaking it down, and he's just not very good at during the shootout. That's all there is to it.
And what's with the wing shooters? You think they're just trying too hard? Or they're not good enough to, on a breakaway, put the puck past the goalie? I mean, in the last shootout that I saw versus Toronto, it seemed like the players that went to take the shootout were deking too much and were trying to really do a whole lot. And at this point in time, it may behoove one of the players to just go up there and rip a slap shot as hard as they can, because they are trying all these dekes and moves and all these shoulder fakes, and it's not effective. Go up there and, you know what, if you're going to struggle, go up there, wind up, and blast the puck and see what happens, because what they're doing is ineffective right now, and you know that's all I can see from my eyes.
Creativity is always rewarded in the shootout, and I think maybe they're just trying to be a little bit too creative. There's nothing that really beats a well-timed and a well-placed wrister, so maybe they need to go to that. Slapshot's not going to really work, I don't believe. But I think they're just going up there trying to be as creative as possible, trying to get the goalie to move side to side to open up either the legs or to find a spot that opens up, and they just try to tuck it in there. I mean, those guys are immensely talented and highly skilled. You've seen it with a lot of their plays where they can sit there and make magic out of nothing. So I think they're just trying to maybe be a little bit too creative, maybe be a little bit overzealous in some of their moves, and maybe that is distracting. Maybe that does kind of pull away from what they're trying to do out there.
All right, Jock, great job. Always bringing the noise, always bringing some great insight and opinions. I greatly appreciate it. Stay with us after the break. We'll get an outside opinion. We'll get the opinion of friend of the podcast, Jeff Deacon from the Detroit Sports Nation, talking about the Wings and talking about our Detroit Tigers and their hot stove moves this offseason. Stay with us.
I'm Megan McCormick out here in Fox Sports LA, and when I'm not sitting out in the sun, I'm listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your hand.
I know.
All right, Detroit Sports Podcast listeners. Joining us on the line, you know him, friend of the podcast, managerial editor for the Detroit Sports Nation, big fan of the Tigers and Wings. Jeff Deacon is on the line. What's going on, Jeff, my man? What's happening tonight?
Oh, not too much. How are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, it's a great night. Always a great night to talk Detroit sports. Let's kick it off by talking about the Tigers. Interesting week last week. They made some moves. They haven't stood pat. And the Tigers let go of Rick Porcello, brought in Yoenis Cespedes, as well as bringing in Alfredo Simon in a trade with Cincinnati, bringing him in to add to the rotation. Your thoughts on the Tigers' moves last week?
You know, I like what they've done so far. They had a gaping hole in the outfield, and they fixed that right away by going out and getting Yoenis Cespedes. He'll provide some power at the plate and give the Tigers a left fielder that's an absolute cannon for an arm. The Alfredo Simon trade was a little surprising to me, considering he didn't really finish last season on a high note. Granted, he was an all-star, but he definitely didn't finish 2014 so great. But they needed to add a fifth starter after they traded Porcello, and he was a relatively affordable option. It's a little too early to speculate on what Shane Green is going to bring to the table, but overall, I think Dombrowski's done a pretty good job so far this offseason.
Now, Jeff, Rick Porcello ate up a lot of innings last year, and he seemed to be coming into his own, but yet he never really cracked the rotation when the Tigers got to the playoffs. What was your thoughts regarding moving Rick Porcello? Did they sell him high? Did they get enough in return for a 25-year-old pitcher entering his prime and who seemed to be developing into a decent overall third or fourth starter?
Well, they sold him at probably his highest value. He was coming off a career year with the Tigers, and he was going to be a free agent after next season, and he'll probably command a contract of over $100 million in total value, and he wasn't going to get that kind of money in Detroit. The Tigers weren't likely to pay a fourth or fifth starter like him that kind of money. So while the Tigers will definitely miss his durability, he was never really a strikeout pitcher to begin with, and he relied heavily on the defense behind him. So I think it was the right move in trading Porcello. They definitely got quite a bit in return in Yoenis Cespedes. But then again, Cespedes is also a free agent after this season. So a little bit of a gamble, but I think they made the right call in the end.
The main issue that the Tigers faced last season, the bullpen, has yet to be addressed, and we're getting a little worried here. It's still early in terms of the offseason, but are you concerned at all that no moves have been made in the bullpen? And do you think right now this squad is a better squad than last season's?
Well, first, regarding the team overall, I think they can be. They can be better than the 2014 version. Obviously, you're losing two big names out of your rotation with Scherzer and Porcello, but they still have a solid rotation with David Price, Verlander, Anibal Sanchez, and the two new guys that we mentioned earlier. They'll get Jose Iglesias back after missing all of last season, and Cespedes to give them a solid corner outfielder. They definitely have the potential to be just as good as last year's team. The interesting thing is the AL Central has improved so much in the past few weeks. Incredible. The Indians, the Twins, and the White Sox both getting huge names. So it's really going to be interesting to see how the Tigers fare against those teams. But in regards to the bullpen, I'm a little bit concerned, but at the same time, I'd be surprised if Dombrowski made any more bullpen-related moves for the rest of the offseason. All the big middle relief names are off the market, and the Tigers kind of see re-signing Joakim Soria and the return of Bruce Rondon from Tommy John surgery as their big bullpen acquisitions, if you will. They're counting on Joe Nathan to have a bounce-back year, so a lot remains to be seen in terms of how the bullpen's going to shape up come spring training, but we'll just have to wait on that one.
If Bruce Rondon comes back and is not 100% after, Tommy John surgery, it's going to be a concern, especially with the Tigers' starting rotation being a little bit weakened with the trade. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Tigers react to the start of the season without as much bullpen help and without as much talent in terms of the starting pitching. A lot of people said, though, that the Tigers did win the winter meetings and that Dave Dombrowski did a decent job. And it kind of looks like, in terms of Dave Dombrowski managing the budget, he's doing the best he can to try to make some improvements in terms of the defense, in terms of the offense, while at the same time managing the contracts. Because if you notice, David Price, Simon, and Cespedes are all on one-year deals. So you have a chance to possibly move them in the middle of the season, or I think Dave Dombrowski's hoping that they ball out, hoping that they play really well to earn a new contract. So this season's going to be very interesting with the Tigers, and we look forward to chatting more and more about them. Jeff Deacon on the line from DetroitSportsNation.com. Let's talk a little bit about the Red Wings. Playing very well to start the season. What's been your take so far on the Red Wings, and what have you been impressed with the Wings' early start to the season in terms of the quality of their play?
Just the consistency right now for me has been just incredible. They've managed to stay healthy, and Mike Babcock is doing his thing again. He's been incredible working with all the young kids. They're one of the youngest teams in the National Hockey League after being one of the oldest for so long. So they're really getting some young guys some ice time, and it's really nice to see Jimmy Howard also having a great season. He's taken a lot of heat in the past for his play the last few seasons, but he's been absolutely outstanding for the Red Wings so far this season. And you have to count on the goal scoring. They're in a little bit of a goal scoring funk right now, but the past few months they've been absolutely rock solid among the league leaders in goals scored. So really overall impressed with the Red Wings so far.
Now, a lot of people still point to the fact that once the Red Wings reach a shootout situation, they struggle mightily in terms of consistently beating the goaltender on breakaways, and Jimmy Howard is just not consistently stopping the puck and has really been unlucky, especially in that shootout last weekend versus Toronto. What's going on with the Wings, and why do they struggle so much in the shootout?
Well, if I had to answer that question, I'd probably be standing behind the bench as one of Babcock's assistants. But, simply put, Howard's not stopping the puck, and the Wings aren't scoring enough shootout goals. They say they practice to shoot it all the time, but for some reason they just haven't gotten it to go their way. I think a lot of it right now is mental. They get to a shootout and they think, okay, well, here we go again, same old. And right now they have absolutely no confidence. And, good teams find a way to get out of the funk, and that's what the Wings and Howard will have to do. But it's definitely been a struggle for them in the shootout, especially for Howard. He's really been struggling in the one-on-one so far this season.
Now, just personally, are you a fan of the shootout? What was your reaction when the NHL decided to break away from tradition in terms of allowing a game to be tied and going into this shootout format? Are you a fan of this, or with the Wing struggle, are you kind of like a lot of people wondering when are they going to end this nonsense?
Well, immediately after they implemented the shootout, I think everyone was pretty happy that there weren't any more ties. No one wants to pay all the money they do to go see a sporting event and see there not be a winner. Years later, after the shootout's been, in the league for quite a while, I don't like it at all. I think it takes a team game that was played for 65 hard minutes and it turns it into a skills competition. And that's not what hockey's all about, team games. So I'd much rather see what they're doing in the American Hockey League is doing a couple minutes of 4-on-4 overtime, and then with the first whistle after 4 minutes, they do a 3-on-3 portion of the overtime, and that solves a lot of problems. I actually got to watch it in the Grand Rapids Griffins game a few weeks ago, and just nonstop action. It was very fun. I think if the NHL did something like that, take away from some of the shootouts and make the game a lot more fun and get away from this skills competition stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Now, when I spoke to Nate earlier in December, he had noted that the Wings play a lot of games in December at home. Now the script flips, and after this home stretch for the Red Wings, a lot of games are going to be played on the road. I think I read somewhere that after this 4-game stretch, until March, there's only going to be maybe 3 or 4 home games at the Joe. Have you had a chance to peek at the schedule? What do things look like for the Wings going forward in the next couple months?
Yeah, this has been a huge month for the Wings, really a huge homestand. It began Tuesday night in Columbus, against Columbus for the Red Wings. So they play the next 7 of 26 at home. So they're only going to play 6 home games at the Joe in January and February combined. So after the new year, they're going to make their trip out to Western Canada, which is always a tough trip. Then towards the end of February or beginning of March, I believe they make a trip out to California in one of the toughest road trips of the season, where they also stop in Chicago and Dallas and Nashville, all teams that are very, very good. They don't have a homestand of longer than 3 games until March 22nd. So it's going to be huge that the Red Wings finish 2014 on a good note, because, like I was saying, they play the next 7 of 26 at home. So they're going to be spending a lot of time in the hotels.
What's very important, too, the Wings have one of the best coaching staffs in all of hockey. Lots of little bit of rumors and rumblings that Mike Babcock may sign an extension, although he refuted them. All signs point to the fact that Mike Babcock and general manager Ken Holland are pretty close. Their families are pretty close. Do you think that Mike Babcock deserves an extension? He's been with the Red Wings 10 years. He hasn't won a cup now in several years. He is a well-respected coach. Lots of people consider him to be one of the finest NHL coaches, but he's been with the Red Wings 10 years. There hasn't been a lot of success in recent seasons. Do you think the Red Wings will extend Mike Babcock, keep him around here for a couple more seasons?
Well, he definitely deserves it. He's by far the best coach in the game. Look what he did with that team last year with so many kids. He still kept the playoff streak alive. And that's kind of what I think he's waiting for. He wants to see how this team this year does. He's earned the right as an NHL coach. He's won everywhere. He wants to keep winning. And if he thinks that he can keep winning in Detroit, then I think he'll stay here. And obviously the Wings are going to offer him a contract, but really it comes down to winning. He's earned that right to kind of choose where he wants to go, and he wants to see where this season, how it plays out. So far, so good, which is probably where those reports come from of getting a contract extension. But I don't expect for anything to get done until the off season. But I think a lot of it weighs on how the team does and how the team does the playoffs. But right now, they're looking like one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. So definitely deserves it, and I hope he's here for the long haul.
Jeff Deacon from Detroit Sports Nation, kind enough to join us, give us his thoughts regarding the Tigers, regarding the Red Wings. You can find his work at DetroitSportsNation.com. Does great work over there at the website. Check him out. You can always hear him here. Very regular. He's a friend of the podcast. Jeff, thanks for your time, my man. Safe travels, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. You guys have a good one.
We greatly appreciate our collaboration with the Detroit Sports Nation. Thanks again to Jeff for coming on. I also want to let you guys in on a great website, uofmdiehards.com. Check out their website. They got great blogs, great articles dedicated to all things University of Michigan. They have interviews with Michigan commits. They cover all sports. They break down breaking news in regards to Michigan. Check out their website if you're interested in all this Harbaugh talk. uofmdiehards.com. DocNJock, check out their website quite a bit. If you're a fan of Michigan, if you're a Michigan diehard, there's no better website to check out than uofmdiehards.com.
Go blue, baby.
All right, cuz the Tigers made some news last week. It's funny. Dave Dombrowski has a reputation now of really being kind of a shyster in that when he tells the media, hey, I'm not interested in making these moves, he turns around and makes moves. So he does keep a great poker face. He does keep things close to the vest, and when he makes moves, they're somewhat interesting. And the Tigers let go of Rick Porcello, and in return we got Jonas Cespedes, trading in some strength at pitching to get better defensively and on offense. Cespedes is going to greatly improve this offensive lineup. I mean, you're going to have Miggy, Victor Martinez, Cespedes, J.D. Martinez. 4 hitters in a lineup are going to be tough outs, and that'll greatly improve the offense. But you did let go of some pitching. You're hoping that Shane Green and new pitcher that they also acquired in a trade, Alfredo Simon, are going to come in here and kind of fill in for the departing Porcello. So right now, as we speak here in December, they've re-signed Victor Martinez. They've traded for center fielder Anthony Gose and Jonas Cespedes. They've traded for pitchers Alfredo Simon and starter Shane Green. Your thoughts so far on the Tigers' shakeup, and do you see this change in philosophy potentially helping them advance farther if they make a playoff run?
I don't see it helping them advance further. The biggest issue with this team the last couple of years has been the bullpen. Dave Dombrowski's done nothing to correct his bullpen.
Nothing yet.
The bullpen has been... Do you see anything coming down the line? I see nothing coming down the line.
Nothing worthwhile, no.
I don't understand why he sits there and he pulls from what is the overall strength of the team in the starting rotation and basically giving up on a young, promising player in Rick Porcello to get a guy on a 1-year deal and get 2 subpar pitchers. I just don't understand it.
So you're not happy with this trade?
No, because you've not addressed what's been the major issue. What's basically fouled you up time in and time again with in the postseason, and that's been your bullpen. You can't sit there and you can't tell me that these guys who are dominant through 6 innings, get into the 7th, get in a little bit of trouble, you then pull them and you turn it over to your bullpen and you tell me you feel good with that bullpen? You can't tell me that you do, because you don't. That bullpen is a disaster. That bullpen has given up huge runs and has basically sunk this ship every time that they make it to the postseason. So trading for a guy who's a 260 hitter, yeah, I like that, all right? And does he make the defense a little bit better out there in the outfield? A little bit, but he's not a great defensive outfielder, all right? So then you get a guy like Shane Green, who'll probably be your 5th starter. He's a young guy, doesn't really strike me as I don't know, doing a whole lot. I think Rick Porcello is a little bit better. Shane Green throws more strikeouts than Ricky P does. And then you get Alfredo Simon, who... he's okay, but he too should be a 5th starter. He's not. He's going to be penciled in as your 4th starter. So now you've got, who do you even have in this rotation anymore? You've got Verlander, you've got David Price, you've got Sanchez, who, if he can stay healthy for an entire season, when was the last time he's had a healthy season? You know, you don't know. And then you've got these 2 new guys who are giant question marks. And then you look at your bullpen and you have nothing in that bullpen. You've got nothing going on in that bullpen. You've done nothing to address major glaring weaknesses. So I don't really like the moves because he didn't address what needed to be addressed. I don't think it makes them better in the long run. If anything, I think it hurts them because you're basically getting a rent-a player with Cespedes.
Okay, now here's where I disagree with you. When I first heard the news, I was like, oh man, they're trading Porcello. He just came off a year where he had some shutout in it. He gave the Tigers several innings. He pitched very well. He had his best statistical season, but he was never a factor in the playoffs. He was never really ever going to be slated as a factor in the playoffs. And I think that in terms of making a move, they sold high on Porcello. They got Cespedes in return, and with Simon and Price, you got a trio of players who are on 1-year deals. So they're going to ball out, hopefully, in order to earn that next contract. Or if things aren't going exactly as the Tigers want, you got guys that you can use as chips for trades next year. And you do have some pieces in weight in the minors that you can bring up to round out the lineup should things go astray. And so I think Dave Dombrowski, given the constraints, this team's not going to go over $200 million, and they have so much money dedicated right now to older players, and you didn't win with Rick Porcello. Okay, and he was a guy that helped you in the regular season get to the playoffs, but I don't think in the long run he was going to be a guy that was going to be a 1 or 2 starter or even a 3 in the playoffs. So you sold him high, and you got Cespedes in return. The major kind of sticking point with Cespedes is he's kind of moved around a little bit, and some people are, in circles questioning his work ethic. Does he really commit full out during a regular season? His on-base percentage isn't that great, but he hits over 20 home runs consistently. He's got a powerful bat, and he plays very well in the outfield. And you upgraded that outfield greatly. You're going to have Martinez, Ghost, and Cespedes in that outfield at Comerica. You improved the offense, and I do think that should Simon or Green struggle, you do have other pieces in the minors in terms of Buck Farmer, Kyle Lobstein, that can kind of push these guys if they're not playing well. I think the Tigers organization has taken a step back and said, okay, what can we do to be financially responsible, yet at the same time field a team that can be competitive? And boy, it's going to be a challenge because the White Sox improved, KC, a little bit, they're retooling, and you always can't discount the Cleveland Indians. So the Tigers I think the Tigers' moves that they made so far have been acceptable. I don't think that either way it has greatly affected their chance to win it all. I think right now there's other teams that are going to be favorites, but I think that we got to give Dave Dombrowski credit. He has yielded year in and year out competitive teams, and the strategies with these guys, with the great pitching, with the great starting rotation, hasn't yielded success yet. So maybe now we're looking at maybe having a little bit less talent in terms of the starters, a little more talent on defense and offense, and maybe that'll get us to the next level in advancing in the playoffs. You got to give him credit. He's trying to retool things and not staying stagnant.
He still needs to address that bullpen.
Yeah, he has to, obviously, and you have to consider that maybe if Alfredo Simon stinks it up, he's been a presence in the bullpen. You're going to have a returning Rondon. Maybe you're going to see an improved, healthy Soria and Joe Nathan. They're, in essence, saying the guys and the pieces we got to step it up, got to nut up and play well, man up, and do what they got to do. Because, yes, the bullpen is an area of weakness, but every team has holes. I'm starting to trust Dombrowski in terms of his ability to reshape teams on the fly, make moves as needed, and there's still room for moves going forward, and there's still room for moves throughout the season. And so far, I like what I'm seeing in terms of building a different kind of team than in the past.
But you've seen it before with Kansas City. Kansas City basically had one of the better bullpens in the league last year, and they got to within one game of winning the World Series. And it was just because they had guys who could go out there and give you 7 strong, and then they could turn it over to that bullpen and watch that bullpen work. Dave Dombrowski has to address his bullpen. I don't care what pieces you get in here. I don't care how you address the outfield. I don't care how you try to sit there and finagle the starting rotation. You have to address that bullpen because you don't have the guys and you don't have the arms on this team that will go 9 or 10 innings. It just doesn't happen anymore in baseball. Baseball has changed. It's not what it used to be when Nolan Ryan would go out there and basically pitch you 12 innings strong. It doesn't happen like that anymore. Guys are done after 6. Guys are done after 7 innings, and then you have to turn it over to your bullpen. We don't have the arms in the bullpen, and that's what kills us time in and time out every single year with these Tigers. Dombrowski has to address his bullpen, and until he does, I'm not sold on this team.
We're still early in the hot stove, and by all accounts, during the winter meetings, the Tigers were one of the teams that had success in terms of making moves and upgrading their talent. You know, several writers have noted that the Tigers were one of the teams that won the winter meetings. That means the meetings were fruitful, they were a success. But yeah, now we need to kind of, look at what's going on in that bullpen, what's going to happen, and what's going to be Dombrowski's philosophy in terms of improving the pitching and the bullpen. You weren't impressed with Shane Green, his rookie year? He did dominate when he pitched versus the Tigers. I think that he was a move that the Tigers were very happy to get. Looks like he's a young pitcher that has potential, has the ability to get guys out, and maybe could move up to the 4th starter. Your thoughts on Shane Green? Were you cool with that move?
I like that he throws strikes. He's just another right-handed arm to add to this rotation. The only lefty you have is Price. I would have liked to have seen a lefty who can throw strikes. It'd made me feel a lot better inside.
Or left-handed bat.
Something. I mean, everything we have on this team is right-handed. So to get something from the left side would have been great. Like you said, whether it be a bat or whether it be an arm, would have been outstanding. I think the kid's got potential. He did impress in his rookie season. He looked good. He looked solid. Going forward, though, we'll see kind of how he shapes out. It'll be nice to see what happens when the Tigers kind of get a hold of him and can maybe help shape and help mold him and bring that arm along. Like I said, he throws more strikes per inning than Porcello did, which is what Dombrowski likes. Dombrowski likes strikeout pitchers, and Porcello was a contact pitcher. We'll see how this translates.
But can you agree the Tigers are better than when the offseason ended? They're just not where you want them to be yet, but they are better.
I think they've added some pieces that, yes, they're a little bit better, but I don't see this translating into a World Series win.
Okay, right.
I don't see this translating into them making a lot of playoff noise either.
Yeah, right now, many people are saying it's 2015 or bust because should they not win, you could be seeing we said it last year, but you really could be seeing a major overhaul should this season not be successful. And it's so interesting. I love talking hot stove, and I love looking at love trying to get inside the mind of Dave Dombrowski. It's tough to do, but you're kind of seeing that they are changing philosophies, becoming a little bit better defensively, athletically, and on offense, and maybe focusing a little bit less on the pitching. All right, decided to open up the phone lines, and friend of the podcast, Vito, called in. What's up, Vito?
Hey, not much, man. How are you?
That's all good, man. Thanks for calling up. What's up? What's on your mind?
So the Tigers' moves recently, what do you guys think, by the way? Because for me, the starting pitching now is lacking, and the bullpen still hasn't been upgraded. So for me, I want to see another bullpen arm added. And the rotation, Anibal, can he stay healthy? Verlander, will he be better? I don't see JV being dominant like he used to be, but he has to be a solid and effective number 3. Can he be that in 2015? That's a question for you guys.
Yeah, listen, Vito. Adam and I just had this debate maybe a little while ago where I think that the Tigers have improved, in terms of letting go of Rick Porcello. I think they sold him high, and they improved their defense, solidifying the outfield. You're going to have J.D. Martinez. You're going to have Yoenis Cespedes and Ghosts out there defending Comerica. Adam is definitely pissed off that they didn't upgrade the bullpen. He is livid. He feels like, this team is a World Series caliber team, and we don't have the pieces necessary in that bullpen to improve. Now, do you think that they sold Rick Porcello too early? I don't think so. I think that he reached his max potential here in Detroit. He's 25 years old. You got a player who's averaged 20 home runs in the last 3 seasons, and he's a guy that can bolster this offense. And Dave Dombrowski, I don't question him too much. I think that the addition of Simon and the addition of Shane Green will help the back end of the starting pitching. And I think that at this point in time, the Tigers are improved.
And what can Simon and Green do? That's the thing at the back end of that rotation. They have to be effective as well, or do you put a guy like Lobstein in there at the number 5? If Green fails or Simon fails? That's another question for you guys, too. What do you think?
Kyle Lobstein came up, and he came up at the tail end of last season and pitched a great game. I was there, I think, when he pitched he pitched Derek Jeter's last game here at Comerica Park, and it was a gem. And I think he's a left-handed starter, potentially in this rotation. Should Simon and should Shane Green not be effective? You also have Buck Farmer And don't discount Dave Dombrowski. I mean, should this starting rotation not be effective, don't think that he won't pull the trigger on maybe moving David Price to maybe solidify, needs next season because he's only on a 1-year deal, and should he struggle or should he show signs of maybe not wanting to be here, he'll be moved.
How about Max Scherzer, though? $200+ million maybe. Do the Tigers go that length, go 5, 6, 7 years, over $200 million in totality over the long term for Scherzer to lock him up? What do you think about that possibility right now as it looks less and less likely to? And the Yankees might get involved. I think the Yankees are a big-time candidate to get involved right now in the sweepstakes for Max Scherzer. And after the Yankees, I'm not even sure who there is really that will get involved at that price tag.
Yeah, just based on the Tigers' payroll situation, Adam has written about it on our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, that this payroll is pretty much close to being where it needs to be at. It's going to be around $170 to $180 million. The Tigers are not going to go over $200 million in payroll. So you notice they picked up Green, they picked up Simon, and once those two moves were made, all signs point to the fact that Max Scherzer's gone. He should sign around what Lester signed for. He's not going to get, I would say 180 to 190 should be max for Max Scherzer. But, should a team decide to break the bank, it would be crazy because Lester and Scherzer have similar numbers. I think that he's going to sign around that point, and that would be the fair market value for a guy like Max Scherzer.
For Scherzer, I would not give him north of 175. I think that's even too much, possibly. I think what the Tigers were willing to give him last year when they made that offer 6 years, 144, that would have been a great deal for Max Scherzer and the Tigers. But much over 150 to 175 in that price range, you're reaching maybe even going to 175. And I think he'll get that, but I think he'll top out at 175 in my opinion. And I think it will be the Yanks that get involved and sign him ultimately too, because they miss out on other names, and they want to compete and keep up with the big names of that division, specifically the Bo Sox after what they did this offseason.
Yeah, our man Vito. How's the Vito and Churko Company show going on over there at the University of Detroit Mercy?
Churko and Company still airing once a week, Wednesday afternoons on CFC Radio, UDM student radio station, CFC Radio. So doing great things, sports talk all the time. Tune in.
Great.
Streams online too.
Yeah,
tune in online at udmercy.edu/CFC Radio.
Yeah, I always tune in from time to time. Any recent guests that you've had that you've been impressed with, that you enjoy chatting with?
We had a man from PistonPower.com, a Pistons blog, Dan Feldman, very impressive guy. Kyle O'Connor from FiveWideSports.com, Notre Dame basketball, Notre Dame football, a lot of college football with that guy from FiveWideSports.com. So guys of that sort, and Rashad Phillips, UDM legend, all-time leading scorer in Detroit Titans men's basketball program. Guys like that and some bigger names, maybe locally, maybe not so much nationally, but good basketball, good football insight, and a lot of different topics that we have talked about throughout this past semester on Churko and Company, and looking forward to even more discussion and more great guests and topics in the second semester at the University of Detroit Mercy.
My man, thanks for calling up, buddy. Call us up anytime when we open the phone lines.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, guys, and talk to you soon.
All right, cuz you had a great week in terms of the NFL Pick'em Challenge. You went perfect. 5 points, bringing you within 2. You are trailing me 42-40, and you had a great week. All respect. You picked 4 games correctly versus the spread, as well as the Lions game, and you did very well. Congrats to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Although your listening skills are questionable. You did try to jip me out of the Lions game, though.
I did the same as you. You know what? I had it written down on my sheet that you picked the Minnesota game, but for some reason in my head, I thought that you had picked the Lions minus the points, so my bad on that.
No, I knew the scenario going into Monday night. I was like, please, Chicago, win the game so he doesn't get that extra point. And, of course, the Saints roll the Bears. What are you going to do, man? What a joke.
I'll take those points all day long.
Yes, sir. All right, these slate of games this week, very interesting. Very interesting with a couple weeks left in this season. But with my first pick...
Really difficult lines this week, too.
Very difficult. So I'm going to try to keep it conservative and keep it straight. The Saints are rolling. I think they're the best team in the South, and they're playing at home. I don't see the Falcons going into New Orleans and dominating. So with my first pick, taking the Saints. Although I know it's tough because they're coming off a Monday night game. Oh, man. Should I rethink this? No, I'm just going to stick with my first instinct. Saints, my first pick is going to be the Saints crushing the Falcons.
All right, with my first pick, I'm going to the Tennessee Titans +3 over the Jacksonville Jags. Jags really haven't impressed. Tennessee's got to figure it out and got to win a game here, right? Why not? They're +3. Let's go, Tennessee.
All right, with my second pick, it's tough to go against Denver with what they do. They're going on the road in a tough environment in Cincinnati. But with my second pick, I like the Broncos. They're rolling. I like the Broncos -3.5 over the Cincinnati Bengals.
All right, with my next pick, this is basically a me versus you pick here. I've got basically half the Steelers on my team, You've got half the Chiefs on your fantasy team. I've got the Steelers -3 over the Chiefs this week.
Yeah,
to take third place in our fantasy league.
I got the exact same thing, because here's the thing. Kansas City struggles on offense. Can they keep up? And I'm so upset that Niall Davis stole Jamal Charles' thunder. 2 passing touchdowns, I believe, and the points that Jamal Charles normally gets, I don't know if he's dinged up a little bit last week, stole my thunder. I'm so mad. Niall Davis, which a lot of people beforehand had said he may get some more touches and some more points, taking away from Jamal Charles. Had Jamal Charles gotten those points, I would have been victorious in my semifinal matchup, but I wasn't. I agree with you. Pittsburgh is a great team at home, and they're going to light it up, and I don't know if Kansas City can keep up. So my third pick, I'm taking the Steelers, and I'm taking the Steelers -3 over Kansas City.
Never trust the Raiders. Don't like the Raiders. I did like Al Davis, but don't trust the Raiders. The Bills just beat probably the hottest team in the National Football League. I'm going to take the Bills -6 over the Raiders.
All right, I have to cheer for Oakland. Please, teams that Jock picks, hopefully you lose a bunch of games in a row. That will help me. I'm keeping it straightforward. I don't think the Bears have a chance. I think they're playing horribly. I think that the fans are ready to revolt. 11,000 empty seats at the Monday night game. A lot of fans said, you know what? Let's wash our hands of this. The Bears are giving up. They're tanking. They're in shambles, and it looks like the head coaches should be broomed out of there. So I got the Lions in a close game, probably in the area of 2017, 2014. Taking down the Chicago Bears to get to the 11th win.
Chicago doesn't have their prime target on offense in Brandon Marshall. He's got a collapsed lung, and he's laying on somebody's IR bed right now. You got Alshon Jeffrey. He's been non-existent. You got Matt Forte. He's going against the #1 rush defense. Yeah, check that off the list. You got Captain Diabetes himself, Jay Cutler, sabotaging my fantasy team and yours. So I'm going with the Lions. Forward down the field. Team that will not yield. Oh yeah, week 17. Looking forward to it, baby. Lions, Packers.
11 wins, Lions.
NFC North champs, baby. Calling my shot right now.
11-win Lions versus 11 wins Packers. Oh, setting up the matchup hopefully in prime time, Sunday night. And really, why is it that we got to play Green Bay freaking in December every year? You know, it's okay if we can play Green Bay first, first couple weeks of the year on the road, and then play Green Bay at home. It always seems like we're playing Green Bay first or around Thanksgiving, and then we got to go into Lambeau when it's freaking cold. Come on, NFL, give us a break. Throw us a bone next year. Let us go to Green Bay like in September. My God, that way we can actually, some of the fans can actually go out there. My ass is not sitting out there in the frozen tundra. If you can get a ticket out there in the middle of December, and especially on a night game.
Good luck.
Yeah, but, I can't wait to break that game down. There's a small chance we have an edge if Green Bay continues to struggle like they did versus Buffalo.
Let's go with Tampa Bay.
Let's go Tampa Bay. Make it easy for us.
Somebody light lifting for us here.
All right, cuz, another great podcast breaking down all things Detroit sports. If you have any comments, questions, reviews, feel free to hit us up at Detroit Podcast on Twitter. Check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Feel free, message us anytime. Even if we don't like your opinion, we do respect it, and we'll try to do better. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. The future of this business is great with the Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you very much.
Go Lions!
They have been called a dirty ball club, and I can see why. This is a typical disgusting display by Rodman, Lambier, and Isaiah Thomas. The yellow, gutless way they do things here.
Every time I go out, you know I got to show out. Every time I go out, you know I bring the dough out.